It doesn't seem to matter how far we get from Matthew. The memories may carry each of us into the hurricane season this year, more concerned and more prepared than ever before. Our roundtable includes the experts on disaster preparedness as the season begins. The president seems to face unprecedented challenges, both from within and from without his administration. We break that down with our political analyst. First, a final 4 weeks before the state's budget goes into effect. The freshman class of lawmakers from Jacksonville joining us on This Week in Jacksonville. And thanks for joining us. This week, Florida's legislative leaders sent their $82.4 billion budget to Governor Rick Scott. Senate Bill 2500. It's a 451-page document. It arrived just after noon on Wednesday. So Governor Scott has 15 days to act as the state's education world leans onto him to veto all or big portions of that budget. So some of the women and men who crafted the budget and the bills that the governor is considering are joining us now. All four state representatives from Jacksonville, Democrats Tracy Davis and Kimberly Daniels, Republicans Clay Yarborough and Jason Fisher. Thanks for being with us. I know we kind of put this together to talk while we didn't know entirely what the governor was going to do. So let's start there. We know the governor's got this this big honking budget on his desk, and he can use a pen to veto different things. Where do you think it's going to land? Are there going to be vetoes? The whole budget? Some of the budget? None of the budget? What do you think? We'll start with you, Tracy.
I personally don't think the governor is going to veto the budget. There are really a lot of good things about the budget. Me and my colleagues, you know, we're hoping he doesn't veto the budget, but he does have the ability to go line by line and veto. So some of those things he's already vetoed, which was really a surprise for me, was the HB 81, that whiskey to Wheaties bill. So he vetoed that early. But all of us are just waiting to see. Yeah,
lots of waiting, it seems like. And while we wait, I know there's been some consternation expressed by City Councilman Matt Schellenberg. I told you I'd mention this. He wrote a letter to the local newspaper saying, among other things, that he thought the Duval delegation brought home crumbs and that they were slaves to House leadership. So, Mr. Fisher, I'm going to start with you on that. How do you feel about that? Did you guys bring home crumbs?
Well, Ken, I would just say anybody who thinks that either can't read or doesn't understand numbers. Because if you look at the transportation budget, we brought back over $1 billion for the region. You look at the education budget, we brought back millions and millions of dollars for the region. You could go through line by line, look at money for the river, look at all the different projects that we brought back. They're good policy, but they're also good projects. So I would just say, candidly, read the budget, read the bills, and you'll see that we brought home quite a bit for Jacksonville.
I'm going to put you in the column of do not agree with that statement brought home crumbs. What about either of you? How do you think this session went?
I'd say too, Ken, just echo what Rep. Fisher said. I mean, when you look at not only budget items, but also other policy issues, I mean, as freshmen, I'm a little bit partial being a freshman, but you look around this table, I mean, Representative Davis did a yeoman's job on a bill to increase voter accessibility with absentee ballots and early ballots. Representative Daniels fought for religious liberty in our schools. Rep. Fisher has a bill that's in front of the governor about coming down on those who might do terrorist acts and things of that nature. This was a busy class. This was a busy session. I do disagree that we just brought home crumbs. If the governor doesn't veto those items from the budget, which we hope he won't, there will be a lot of dollars coming into Jacksonville for transportation, for education, for a lot of other things. So it was a busy session, and we did a lot.
Let me ask about some of the dollars that aren't coming to something that was important to the governor. Enterprise Florida and Visit Florida. Enterprise Florida, I understand, got zero in the budget. It's not being eliminated. Visit Florida, only $25 million after the governor asked for a lot more there. And we saw the Jax USA Partnership held its quarterly luncheon this week. They had the Florida Chamber CEO, Mark Wilson, here talking about this. A lot of folks feel like removing those incentives, taking those away, hurt the economy, and specific to what's so important for Florida. Representative Daniels, what about you? Do you think that that is going to hinder what we want in terms of growth and sustainability in Florida?
Well, it depends on how you look at it, especially with Enterprise Florida. You know, I vote, and when I'm looking at it, I am the representative of District 14. And so if I ask some of the constituents in District 14, they don't even know what that is. So I really believe that it needs to extend more money to the local and the small businesses in my district, and I think it would have brought more attention in my area. Other than that, I just don't believe that one issue. A lot of time when people want what they want, they make one issue bigger than what it is, and I'm not downplaying playing it, but I don't think it's going to shut anything down.
Well, maybe this broadens it to the rest of you as well. How do you vote? Do you vote just for what your constituents in the district want or understand, or do you have to vote on a statewide, what's good for all of Florida, rather than just my district or this part of Jacksonville that you represent?
I think we do it both ways. I think we look at the issue as a whole, and we vote both ways. I think for me, it's mainly voting as to the effects of Floridians as a whole. But coming back home, and we know home for us is Duval County, you definitely have to make sure the way you vote in Tallahassee is something you can defend, and it's a benefit to your constituents here in Duval County.
I do want to talk about something that's important to every constituent. It would seem education vetoes. It's a possibility that would happen. We know that education groups are telling the governor, please veto the education portion of the budget because it's got less than a $25 per pupil spending increase. So let's just start there. If the education veto happens, it would potentially force a special session. We know we're talking about the possibility of this Schools of Hope bill, that controversy, meaning that the governor or others would say, we don't want to go forward here. What do you think about this? Where did you land in terms of supporting that education portion of the budget?
Well, Kent, as somebody who serves on the Education Appropriations Committee and having been a former school board member, I was very involved in the process on crafting that bill. We actually, as the Florida House, heard almost every single policy item that was ultimately in 7069, and it passed off the House floor a lot of times with almost unanimous support. There were a few things that didn't get heard, like sunscreen for kids, allowing kids to have sunscreen in school, which
without a doctor's note,
which is amazing that wasn't the case. But anyway, we heard a lot of that in committee and on the floor. So it was done in the sunshine. It was done with our kids in mind. So we're increasing the per pupil funding by $24 per student, and that's statewide average. And we're investing over $400 million more in education than we did in the previous year. Some of that money came from the economic incentives bucket. So instead of giving out corporate welfare, we said, no, we're going to invest in our kids. And so if you look at where those dollars go, they actually follow the student more now than they ever did before, especially with the Title I dollars and with the Gardner scholarships.
Are Democrats happy with what's going on in the education budget?
Well, I guess we'll jump in here. No, we are actually not. We actually, probably most of us voted against that bill. And, you know, I agree with my colleague. There were some good things about that bill. I actually, and probably had never said it out loud, but I actually had a minority teacher scholarship that was wrapped up in HB 7069. But for Democrats, I think the overall and the best way we can say it is, you know, sometimes you look at this and I tell people when I'm explaining, you cannot tie my hands and my feet together and expect me to run the same race. And so I think overall public schools appreciate competition, but I cannot run the race or I can't compete if my hands and my feet are tied. So
you feel like it ties?
It ties the hands of, you know, there's a lot of exceptions when it comes to this bill, when it comes to charter schools. There's exception in the hiring of certified personnel. There's exception of a lot of facilities that can be used. And now they're sharing Title I dollars with public schools are sharing Title I dollars. And that's just a few things that we saw that didn't need to be in that bill, that just made it overall not a good bill for us.
So let me wrap up, and Mr. Yarbrough, give you the last chance to speak on this, 30 seconds or less.
Sure. I would just say, you know, at the end of the day, we have a constitutional mandate to provide a quality public education or quality education for every child in Florida. So whether it be through the public schools or if parents choose charter school or another alternative or homeschool or whatever it might be, at the end of the day, we have that requirement. And so if we have schools that continue to fail, like currently I believe it's 115 is what we looked at, that's across the state, we have an obligation to make sure that does not run counter to the Constitution. We have to do something. So we need a balanced approach. We need other alternatives that will be good for the children as we move forward. I think this is a start. I supported it. Could it be better? Yes. At the end of the day, I think we could tweak it as we move forward, but we have to look at other options.
We are going to move forward, too. Thank you so much. I appreciate hearing some of your insights. That went quick, didn't it?
Yes, it did.
Always too quick when we get to talk about this, but appreciate your time this morning. Well, a different kind of storm that we're going to talk about when we come back. Not the storm of politics in Tallahassee, but how are you planning for the next storm that might come during this hurricane season? That's next on This Week in Jacksonville.
Most Most men think they can't afford a custom suit, but at Men's Warehouse, you can. Create a custom suit as unique as you are. Custom suits for every man, starting at just $395, only at Men's Warehouse.
This is a ClassAction.com consumer alert. Homes built before 1975 may have pipe erosion that can cause major water damage to your home. If you have water damage, warped floors, slow drains, or even a water-stained wall, you may have leaking pipes below your foundation, right under your feet. It's not a matter of if, it's a matter of when. Call or visit pipelawsuit.com now to learn more.
Low on cash and credit? Check out JD Buyrider's Buy Right plan. You could get a great car that's inspected, computer tested, serviced, and road ready, and it's backed by one of the best warranties around. Buy your ride right at JD Buyrider.
Hey, how was your day?
Good, clean food is ready to pick up when you need it quick.
Bonus points, right?
Delivered when you're working through lunch or dinner. And is ready for catering when the team needs it most. Rapid pickup, delivery, and catering. Panera, food as it should be.
Labels, huh?
Some chicken brands use labels to trick people and charge higher prices.
Raised without antibiotics.
That's just marketing speak, because federal law requires all chicken to be clear of antibiotics before they leave the farm. You're not a vegetarian.
No, I'm not. Neither are chickens. That's why we feed them what they need. A healthy, balanced diet full of vitamins and animal protein like they naturally eat. You missed one.
Oh, did I?
Labels can be misleading.
Sanderson Farms. Good, honest chicken.
Most men think they can't afford a custom suit, but at Men's Warehouse, you can. Create a custom suit as unique as you are. Custom suits for every man, starting at just $395, only at Men's Warehouse.
After 43 years, the oldest cold case in Jacksonville cracked. A botched robbery leaving a father dead. The suspect escaped until now. Caught living a double life as a street performer in New Orleans, only on 4. The victim's family revealing all new information.
For 43 years, we didn't even know that this individual existed.
How a son's pursuit for justice finally paid off. Hunting a Killer, Wednesday starting at 5:30 on News for Jax.
You're watching This Week in Jacksonville with Kent Justice.
And very good news for you as you prepare for the beginning of the hurricane season, which began this week on June 1st, the Disaster Preparedness Sales Tax Holiday. Let's show you some information. It wraps up today, June 4th. You don't have to pay tax on qualifying disaster preparedness items like flashlights, batteries, weather radios, generators that are $750 or less. For a full list of qualifying items, that is, you go to newsforjax.com/hurricanes. And joining us this morning, Jeffrey Alexander from the St. Johns County Emergency Operations Center, the Deputy Director there. I appreciate your time. And I would appreciate some of your perspective, because we all who are newer to hurricanes in Florida went through a major hurricane last year, Hurricane Matthew in October. Obviously, it created a lot of damage, but I think there's still a warning to be seen as we go into this next season. First off, tell me where we stand with St. Johns County in recovering from Hurricane Matthew right now.
Oh, well, we're still recovering. We've received over $100 million in flood insurance to the citizens who were flooded out. We had almost $200 million in debris removal.
Wow.
We're still trying to clean up areas of the river. So we're ongoing with this recovery, and the citizens did great. They really did. They heeded the evacuation warning and got out of the way. And so we overall did well. But we didn't get hit by a major hurricane. At that last minute, it actually veered away from us and saved us from a direct impact. So if you think about the impact that we actually had, we got strong tropical storm force conditions. So it could have been enormously worse. So anybody who believes that we got hit by a really strong hurricane, realize how much worse it could have been, because next time it might be worse, and we want to make sure everybody heeds those evacuation warnings.
So Jeff, I want to talk about specific ways that people should be preparing now while there's not any storm named or unnamed spinning off in the tropics or anything like that. But first, tell me about your experience during hurricane season last year, and maybe specific to leading up to Hurricane Matthew arriving there that first week of October. Were you guys pins and needles also looking at the track of the storm, seeing it was Category 3 or 4 and could make a direct hit on us?
Oh, absolutely. I mean, we started monitoring the storm in September. And watched every 3 to 6 hours. What's the change? What's
every
the change?
3 to 6 hours.
Every 3 to 6 hours. We live in a 3 to 6 hour cycle during a storm that looks like it's coming in our direction. So we try and monitor every little change in it. We want to see what's going on with it. When it hit a Category 5, yeah, we were pretty much wide awake watching it all the time. Gratified to see it go down a little bit, but it was heading at us at a strong Category 3. It missed us by 31 miles. We were on the edge of our seats during that time because we did not know it was missing us. We don't know what's going on out there. We can't be out there with our eyes open. It's too dangerous to be out there. So when wind stopped blowing, we got out there and took a look around. We were actually happy that it wasn't 100 times worse.
Of course. Let's talk a little bit about what people should be doing right now. I just read a list of some of the things that you can buy tax-free through the rest of today to prepare. But what's your best advice to somebody who may be a little worried because of what happened last year, but as you're saying, don't think that's the worst it can get?
Oh, no, well, absolutely. It's not the worst it can get. Go out and get those supplies. You got to get your supplies. You got to know what you need. You don't want to be standing in line when we're saying evacuate. That's not a good time to do it. Understand your insurance. Review your insurance. Contact your insurance agency if necessary. Understand what's covered and what isn't. And make sure you're comfortable with what's covered. Are you covered if you have to evacuate? What parts of your home are covered? Can you get reimbursed for flood damage or not? If you don't have flood insurance, this is Florida. So flood insurance is real important for everybody to have. If you're not in a known flood zone, it's not real expensive, and it's a very good investment, so I would advocate that. Get a plan.
Right.
Know what you're going to do, where you're going to evacuate to. Know what evacuation zone you're in.
Right.
And know the construction of your home. If you're not in an evacuation zone, but you're in a house that was built well before the construction standards were put in place, are you comfortable staying there? If not, get a plan for evacuation. Those evacuation orders, the last line of them is, or if you're in an unsafe structure or a mobile home, you need to evacuate.
Jeff, I appreciate the time. I know a lot of us are hoping that it's very calm this year, but we better be planning for it might not be. I appreciate your insights and your willingness to share with us this morning.
Thank you very much.
Well, Rick Mullaney has a lifetime of experience in law, now the director at the Public Policy Institute at JU. We're going to talk national politics. That's next on This Week in Jacksonville.
Bill Cosby's sexual assault trial. It begins. The defendant, the accuser.
Mr. Cosby?
And Inside Edition is there for every day of dramatic testimony. Next, Inside Edition.
Monday at 7:30 on Channel 4.
Hey, Florida, there's an all-new Wheel of Fortune scratch-off game. Available now at your local lottery retailer with top prizes of $2 million and over $75 million in total cash prizes. Winning with the Florida Lottery sure is fabulous. Play today.
Florida, it's so good to see you again. Nice castle, but you're going to need a moat.
I'm very, very fascinated by this ice cream. It's delicious.
You're also going to need loopholes. You need the towers.
Did we get it all?
Oh, gracias, señorita.
Nice. There's always something new to discover here on Florida's historic coast.
You should see my castillo.
It's not surprising that the most memorable memorials are the ones we plan ourselves. After all, who knows you better than you? So why not get a plan together and let us take care of the details? It's what we're known for. Find out how at dignityjacksonville.com. Only a Dignity Memorial professional can celebrate a life like no other.
Pamper your feet with this at-home pedicure.
I don't have time for that. My feet get so dry and cracked, I need serious relief. That's why I use O'Keeffe's for healthy feet. Guaranteed relief for extremely dry, cracked feet. Thanks to O'Keeffe's, I got my feet back.
What's it gonna be, compadre? The usual? Come on, mix it up. Relax. Don't let him get to you. Say it.
Meatball marinara, no. Hickory turkey and bacon melt.
Tender turkey breast, crispy bacon, melted American cheese, topped with a smoky hickory sauce. We have ourselves a winner. The Hickory Turkey and Bacon Melt, part of the new Hickory Collection. Bold flavors from a better Subway.
When you've been in an accident, you're gonna have a lot of questions. After making sure that you and everyone's okay, call Harrell & Harrell. We will have the answer to all those questions that you have of what you need to do afterwards.
Harrell & Harrell. Don't settle for less than you deserve.
Rick Mullaney joining us, News4Jax political analyst, the founder of Jacksonville University's Public Policy Institute, and a go-to person for me, somebody to talk about what's going on in the federal level here. It can be easy to get lost in he said and she said and whatever, but let's talk about some of these things that are going on. This week, a pretty big week, the president facing some accusations, facing continued investigation, and then deciding, hey, we are stepping out of the Paris Climate Accords or agreement. What do you think about that?
Kent, I think they're all big weeks.
Yeah, yeah, so far, right?
Big weeks, big days, big hours. It's amazing. This week on the Paris Accord, though, what you saw Donald Trump do, I think, is revert to his base. This was vintage Donald Trump, reverting sort of the themes of his inaugural address. This was Donald Trump fulfilling a campaign promise that he would withdraw from the Accords. Donald Trump basing it on economics and arguing the economic case, and also arguing the case that he believed fundamentally that this wasn't fair. Too many burdens on the United States, not enough of a burden on China and India. Of course, that argument, that's his argument. It hasn't been well received. But this week, the big news, of course, was the withdrawal from the Paris Accords.
Yeah, well, and this coming week, at the end of this week, we're going to see something big. The former FBI director, James Comey, has agreed to testify for a Senate committee. And I guess we're going to see what happens here. He's going to break his silence, reportedly go public with allegations of pressure by President Trump. Sources saying that Comey's going to testify before the Senate that the president pressed him to drop the FBI probe into General Michael Flynn. This seems like this is going to be a really important point early on in this first year of his presidency.
Ken, it really is. And I think the eyes of many in the nation will be turning to James Comey this Friday. They'll be looking to that testimony. And it'll be dissected, it'll be analyzed, every word will be gone over. But in the end, as much as that will be talked about and speculated about, in the end, I think it's going to come back to the special counsel. He's the key. Bob Mueller is the key. And I'd be very surprised if Bob Mueller doesn't know every word that James Comey is going to say. They work together. They know each other. If Bob Mueller's doing his job properly, and he has a reputation for doing his job properly, he's very well versed on what a lot of this evidence is, what the testimony is going to be. But look for the eyes of the country to turn to this testimony on Friday. It's going to get a lot of attention.
So Mueller is somebody who's really well respected, well thought of across party lines, right? Why is what he's doing so important? And you and I have talked on background here. Offline, we've talked about when you set up an investigation like this, something is going to come of it. Something is going to come of it.
Kent, in the first 4.5 months of the Trump administration, in many ways, the most significant development was the appointment of a special counsel. No president wants a special counsel, or as they used to call it, a special prosecutor, appointed to look at their administration. Very few can withstand the scrutiny, and typically special prosecutors or special counsels don't spend millions of dollars, do an investigation, and come back and say everything's fine. Typically, they result in the indictment of somebody. Look at Bill Clinton, an investigation into a land deal that resulted in impeachment. Ronald Reagan, Iran-Contra with 11 indictments. Here you can expect that Mr. Mueller, and I do expect likely that somebody will be indicted. At the top of that list probably is General Flynn. Not far behind is Paul Manafort. But for Donald Trump, the appointment of a special counsel is very ominous for him. In the near term, it can work to his advantage if he can deflect questions to the special counsel saying, oh, that's being investigated, let's talk about health care. There may be a silver lining because he's so respected. But in the end, I think this is a very ominous development for the Trump presidency.
So you're director of the Public Policy Institute now at JU, but your entire career has been in the field of law. Explain to me how the special counsel or special prosecutor doesn't mean that the president is going to get charged with crimes.
It does not. There's some different, legal scholars disagree on this, but I think the better view is this. A sitting president cannot be indicted for a crime while he's a sitting president. They can be indicted, however, after they leave office. And what you saw was Gerald Ford pardoning Richard Nixon after he left office. What can happen, of course, while they're a sitting president is the findings can come back and it can be the basis for impeachment. Impeachment requires a majority vote in the House to impeach. They become the prosecutors. The jury then becomes the Senate. The Senate requires a 2/3 vote. The presiding judge is the chief judge of the U.S. Supreme Court. Now, we're way ahead of ourselves in this conversation, but it does help to understand how this works. So it's not as though the special counsel is going to be indicting the president. Richard Nixon was an unindicted co-conspirator back in those days, but he can return with some findings that can result in some articles of impeachment.
So before we run out of time, one of the challenges that has come regarding the president's son-in-law, Jared Kushner. Kushner is a senior advisor for the president, but he met in December with the Russian bank chairman, Sergei Gorkov. And at issue is, what did they really talk about? We've got some sound here.
Mr. Gorkov, quick question. What did you really speak to Jared Kushner about in New York when you met him in December?
No comments.
Did you talk about sanctions? Excuse me?
No comments.
Well, what was discussed? The White House says it was a diplomatic meeting, that Kushner met you as part of the transition team. Your bank says it was a business meeting.
Thank you so much. Sorry. I'm sorry.
Were you a conduit? Were you a conduit to the Kremlin, Mr. Gorkov?
So part of what that is about is, are the back channels, are there channels of communication? And we'll wrap up with that. Rick, anything inappropriate that we've heard, or just no comment is no comment?
I think we have to wait and see. On the right, there's a reaction to say this means nothing. That it does mean you need to investigate. On the left, there's a suggestion, oh, he should be impeached. That's going too far. This is an example of a death by 1,000 cuts for Donald Trump, whether it's Jared Kushner in a back channel, whether it's Attorney General Sessions, did he have an inappropriate meeting, whether it's some other disclosure coming out of the White House. The Trump administration is suffering this sort of death of 1,000 cuts. They need to get organized. They need to deflect that to the investigation and move forward on the big three: health care, tax reform, and the budget.
And the critics are saying nothing's getting done yet because we've got all these distractions. I appreciate your time very much, Rick. Well, This Week in Jacksonville airs each Sunday morning at this time, and we're planning on the new superintendent for Duval Schools, Patricia Willis. She'll be joining us sometime soon. State Rep Travis Cummings was on the schedule, but he's going to be in special session in Tallahassee instead. Plus, we're working to get an update on the dredging project for Jacksport. I'm Kent Justice. Thanks for watching.
More people in Northeast Florida and South Georgia get their news from News 4 Jax than anywhere else.